Hi there, my fencing teists. I wanted to bring up something that I thought of while I was doing the French stance video. The modern fencing stance is not going to be any of the stances I've been showing you because I've been focusing on the art of fencing. And the art of fencing and the sport of fencing are now actually very different things. The sport of fencing is based around getting a touch before they touch you by pretty much any means possible. And there are aspects like flicking and right-of-way engages that just wouldn't happen in a true fight with a true weapon or unarmed. And the sport has emphasized certain theories which dictate what kind of stance is useful and thus what is seen. So the stable, grounded stances I've been showing you are useful in the street, they're useful in any terrain. They are not necessarily what you find on a fencing piece or strip because they want quick, dynamic, hopping, almost boxing-like stances where they can get in and get their attack before the person who they're fighting can hit them. And that is partially dictated by the weight of the weapon they're using. The modern fencing foil and épée in the same vein is a very light weapon. I can hold it up by my pinky on no strain. And again, I'm still recovering with this arm. This arm is hurt. And I can hold it up by the pinky, not a problem. This is a weapon that at best weighs ounces. And I can even make multiple changes of engagement and several quick attacks, and it's not more than a minor strain on a hurt arm. Now, for a classical weapon, something like a broadsword, I need to use my left hand. The engages aren't nearly quite so fast. They're not going to be nearly quite as delicate or as precise. And in the same way, I can't move as effectively with it on the balls of my feet. In fact, I can feel that compromising my structure just because this is so heavy. So a grounded stance is much more beneficial for using this type of weapon. And that is the distinction between sport fencing and, I'd say, the art of fencing. I don't necessarily want to say real fencing because, as much as I hate to admit it, the modern sport fencing is a real form of fencing that you commonly find. I would say it's as real as artificial sweetener is real. It exists, but it is not something that you find in nature, and that sort of bouncing is not something you'd find in an actual combat with a real weighted weapon, a practical weighted weapon. Small swords, in theory, you could do some of those things, but small swords, even then, were dictated by society and the dueling culture, not that you were going to, mug someone with one or defend yourself from a mugger with one. You could, but it would be kind of dicey. It would probably not end well for you, trying to use a small sword in a self-defense situation, unless you really knew what you were doing. So the type of bouncing, sport-based footwork, that's not something I really tend to teach or encourage unless you're a dedicated, like if you're a boxer, I would say that's okay, and you're going to transmute your boxing and fencing skills into one art. In that case, sure, keep that boxing, but you're going to have to use a lighter weapon in practice, or you're going to have to transition between heavy stances when you're making committed attacks and lighter stances when you're engaged. And you might even have to brace that weapon with the other hand to move effectively. That's the only thing I can think of that would really help you use a functionally weighted weapon with that kind of bouncy stance. And in a self-defense situation, I doubt you'd be able to. I doubt you'd get the chance to slip into that kind of bouncy position. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is something that you will see. It's something that you will come across. It is not something I advocate because it's not for the art of fencing, it's for the game of fencing. But we can talk about that later, and we can talk about it more in person if you like. Feel free to hit me up about it, and until then, keep your teacups empty.